Which conspiracy theory is so believable that it might be true? Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel. That your phone's microphone is constantly hot and it's listening for keywords to target advertising. Most glaring instance where this happened to me was when I walked into a colleague's office. He had just gotten a standing desk, but one that goes on top of his existing desk, rather than a standalone model. That's important to note. I said, nice standing desk, when did you get that? Thanks, just today. He replied. That was literally all that was said about the desk. We talked about work related stuff, and as I walked out and checked my phone, there was an ad on Facebook for that exact model of standing desk. I have never owned one, wanted one, or googled one before. Yet there it was on my feed. Tinfoil hat be damned, they listen in. Michael Jackson was chemically castrated by his father to preserve his soprano singing voice, which was the source for his infatuation with children. My conspiracy theory. Facebook purposely attempts to ruin people's relationships because the drama gets more views and more views sell more ads. Several years ago they introduced a feature so that your comments on other pages would show up in your friends' feeds. So if you're secretly an atheist and you comment on some atheist page, it shows up in your devout Southern Baptist Grandma Muriel's timeline, even though it's a conversation that has nothing to do with her and there's no reason for it to be. As a result, Facebook outs you to your family and grandma is typing away at all the evil satanists trying to corrupt her grandson. And if you comment on a public post, it's unavoidable. You used to be able to control who could see your comments even on public posts by other pages, but at the same time Facebook introduced their tattletale feature. They took that ability away. Now if they were to stumble across the same page they'd be able to see your comment. But after that change, Facebook started pointing everybody you know directly to it. Not to mention, the privacy settings are difficult to find, difficult to understand, and with each passing year gives you less and less control over who sees what. By forcibly combining everybody's social circles, Facebook is trying to generate conflict. They want to generate conflict because the conflict happens on Facebook, which means people logging on to Facebook more often and seeing more ads. They're essentially an internet tabloid, except instead of showcasing the personal drama of celebrities for clicks and sales, they're doing it to you instead. Ever notice how the vast majority of family drama, relationship fights, etc. these days happens on Facebook? That's by design. Facebook is literally destroying the social fabric to make a buck, consuming relationship stability like it's an oil refinery consuming crude. That there are hundreds of companies that operate tens of thousands of Reddit accounts each. They have been auto-rigging these accounts for years, use scripts to auto-post and comment, and have humans that shift through all the accounts to make various comments to maintain these accounts. These companies have the ability to control and game their way to the front of Reddit. Huge brands use them, special interest groups use them, political parties use them. It's not a conspiracy, it's a real thing. The ballistic missile threat that was sent to Hawaiian cell phone saying, "Seek shelter, this is not a drill," that was later deemed a mistake, was a real missile that was intercepted before impact. Dyson purposefully made the cable shorter over time, just before announcing the cordless version. MyDC01 has a 12 meter flex, MyDC14 has a 6.5 meter flex. They purposefully made the flex shorter to be an inconvenience and make people want the cordless version. That William Shakespeare never wrote any of the works that have been attributed to him. I don't think I believe the theory 100%, but the lack of evidence to support him as a writer is amusing. William Shakespeare was born, lived, and died in a small town that consisted of not much more than sheep farmers. His father made sheepskin gloves. Certainly not the life that would have contributed to the knowledge of the many royal topics of Shakespeare's works. Surely the true author of Shakespeare's works would have had the means to travel and learn of all the worldly topics that his works were based on. We do know that he did own the Globe Theatre and that he did work there as an actor. There is no record of his attendance at any schools. He was raised in an illiterate household. Both of his parents signed all legal documents with a mark, a sign of illiteracy. There are 6 surviving signatures of Shakespeare. All of them look as if a 4-year-old wrote them. They were almost assuredly written by an illiterate person. All of the signatures were found on documents such as a mortgage contract and his will. There are no surviving original written literary works written by Shakespeare. There are no surviving personal letters written by him. Surely a letter written from Shakespeare would be coveted as prized possession, surely destined to survive to the present day. Mozart's handwritten letters professing his desire to poop on his cousin's face have survived to this present day, but not a single letter written by William Shakespeare. The only surviving written documents, written in his hand, were his will, and few other small pieces. All pieces of his writing that have been found were all written in secretary hand, a very basic form of writing, typically used by poorly educated people. There are no surviving official documents that recall him as being a writer in any way. All official documents state that he was a businessman and a real estate owner. Shakespeare's will made no mention of any assets related to writings, books, or anything of that nature. All these facts paint a picture of a scenario where someone paid William Shakespeare to use him as a pseudonym for their own writings, and perhaps used his position as the owner of a theatre as their own personal venue. The best theory about the true authorship was Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford. He was well known to be a gifted poet and playwright. He was also known to sponsor companies of actors, and he was a patron of some of the most well-known theatres. Oxford would not have been at liberty to write about the topics found in Shakespeare's works. The only compelling evidence that I've heard from Shakespeare supporters are anecdotes written years after his death by people who knew Shakespeare and referring to him as a writer. I don't find this compelling at all. If Shakespeare made an arrangement to act as the author of someone else's works, surely such an arrangement would require Shakespeare lie to everyone. I'm certain that all his friends thought he was a writer. Memes about the NSA and other spy programs are encouraged by the very agencies spying on us to twist the idea into the absurd and to humanize their agents. Miley Cyrus's crazy streak was all a carefully planned marketing scheme to get her solidified as an A-list celebrity. I have long argued to friends and family that Barack Obama may have been a CIA operative sometime in between college and being a community organizer in Chicago. Bear with me. After graduating from Columbia in 1983, Obama went to work for a company called Business International Corporation, a company that is known to have been used as a CIA front in the past. There is little information available about this time in Obama's life. The CIA was actively recruiting at that point in history and would have been very interested in a young black man with an Ivy League education and ties to Indonesia and Africa. The information would most likely still be classified, but it could also have helped his rapid accession in politics at such a young age. After nursing this theory for a while, I finally googled it, and, sure enough, loads of websites tout similar theories. Some of it convincing. Not the stuff about him being a CIA crony nor who fought Russians on the moon. That angle is less convincing. Long John Silver's is some kind of money laundering scheme on the basis that they have been open for as long as I can remember, but I have also literally never seen a busy Long John's. Toxic delusion that I ironically entertain? Perhaps. The president of the Philippines, Duterte, is very anti-drugs to hide his own involvements with drug cartels off which he makes billions. The Laurel Canyon Conspiracy. Basically, if you look at the counterculture revolutionaries in the music industry in the 60s, most of them were the children of military intelligence people. So the theory is that the free love, lots of drugs movement they inspired was done intentionally to distract the youth from a full-scale revolution. The thought was, if the angry youth of the mid to late 60s were too high and getting laid all the time, they would stop caring as much about societal ills and then basically sleepwalk through the 70s, which they did. I stumbled upon this when I was reading up on Jim Morrison and how his father was the one who called in the fake strike at the Gulf of Tonkin that kicked off the Vietnam War and which was shown later to have been a false flag. Turns out, a lot of his contemporaries were also children of highly placed military people with ties to intelligence. Strange that they all wound up in Laurel Canyon as part of the same movement. The development of the F-35 fighter jet is so over budget, so the military can fund other top secret projects without making a new line item on the budget. It's the only conspiracy theory I believe. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel.